CEO rescues abandoned dog, then faces a life-changing revelation about his past that forces him to re-evaluate his priorities and choices. Alden Voss walked the same path every morning. The sun peeked over the buildings, casting long shadows on the sidewalk. He had a routine that kept him focused: coffee from the corner shop, a brisk walk to his office, and thoughts filled with tech innovations. But today, something was different. Today, the world seemed to hold its breath. As Alden approached the alley behind a row of shops, he heard a faint whimper. He paused, curiosity pulling him closer. Behind a dumpster, a small, scruffy dog sat shivering, its ribs visible beneath a layer of dirt and matted fur. Alden's heart softened at the sight. "Hey there, little guy," he murmured, kneeling down. The dog looked up, eyes wide and filled with fear. Alden reached out slowly, trying not to startle him. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The dog did not move, but he didn't back away either. Instead, their eyes locked. In that moment, Alden felt a connection that surprised him. It was as if the dog was not just a stray, but a reflection of something lost within himself. "I'll call you Rufus," he said, the name rolling off his tongue with ease. He had never been one to take risks, especially not in his carefully controlled life. But something about this encounter felt fated. Alden gathered Rufus into his arms, feeling the warmth of the small body against his chest. The dog trembled, but leaned in, seeking comfort. Alden stood and looked around the alley, wondering how this creature ended up here, alone and hungry. "Let's get you home," he whispered, already feeling a tug on his heart. Walking back, Alden felt a mix of emotions. His life had been all about ambition, chasing goals and achievements, but holding Rufus, he sensed a shift. Was he ready to let someone, or something, into his life? "What am I doing?" he wondered aloud. "I don't have time for a dog." But the thought felt hollow. Perhaps this was more than just an act of kindness. Maybe it was a chance to embrace something real. Once home, Alden set Rufus down in the living room. The dog sniffed around, taking in the new environment with cautious curiosity. "You must be hungry," Alden said, heading to the kitchen. He opened a can of dog food, the smell filling the air. Rufus perked up, tail wagging slightly as he approached the bowl. Alden watched, a smile creeping onto his face. "You like that, huh?" After Rufus finished eating, he flopped down on the floor, eyes drooping. Alden sat next to him, feeling a warmth spread through him. "You know, I've spent so long trying to build this perfect life, but I think I forgot what it feels like to just be." He stroked Rufus's head gently, feeling the soft fur beneath his fingers. The dog sighed contently, and Alden found himself lost in thought. Days turned into weeks, and Alden found himself pouring more time into caring for Rufus. Walks in the park became a daily ritual, and Alden enjoyed the simple pleasure of watching the dog run and play. Rufus seemed to thrive with each passing day, reflecting the joy Alden had buried for so long. But the more time they spent together, the more Alden noticed the shadows of his own past creeping back. One evening, as they sat on the couch, Alden recalled a childhood memory. He had a dog once, a golden retriever named Max. "I lost him too soon," he said softly to Rufus, who looked up at him with understanding. "I built walls after that. I thought it would protect me." The dog rested his head on Alden's lap, and he could feel the weight of his own loneliness lifting, if only a little. But Alden's heart was still guarded. Could he really let Rufus in? Or was he destined to remain isolated, trapped in a cycle of ambition and fear? As he gazed into Rufus's trusting eyes, a flicker of hope ignited within him. Perhaps this unexpected encounter was just the beginning, a chance for Alden to reconnect with the parts of himself he had long forsaken. As the days passed, Alden Voss found himself adjusting to a new routine. Each morning, instead of rushing to his office, he devoted time to Rufus. The once abandoned dog transformed his quiet apartment into a lively home. Alden would often sit on the floor, tossing a ball, while Rufus joyfully chased after it, his tail wagging furiously. One morning, As sunlight streamed through the window, Alden watched Rufus play. "You know," he said aloud, chuckling, "I never thought I'd be a dog person." Rufus paused mid-bounce, tilting his head as if he understood every word. The bond between them deepened with each passing day. Alden discovered that Rufus was not just a pet, he was a companion who filled the silence of the apartment. Alden found himself talking to Rufus about his day, sharing his thoughts and dreams. "I have a meeting later, buddy," he sighed, scratching Rufus behind the ears. "I wish I could bring you along." Rufus, with his big brown eyes, seemed to listen intently, his head resting on Alden's knee. In those moments, Alden realized he was beginning to let go of the walls he had built. The joy of companionship was slowly melting away, the isolation he had felt for years. However, as Alden grew closer to Rufus, he also found himself facing memories he had long buried. One evening, sitting on the sofa with Rufus curled up beside him, Alden recalled a childhood experience with his own dog, Max. "You know, Rufus," he began, his voice soft, "when I was a kid, I had a dog named Max. He was my best friend." Rufus looked up, ears perked, as if encouraging Alden to continue. "Max got sick one summer," Alden said, his voice trembling slightly. "I remember feeling so helpless. I didn't want to lose him, but I did. After that, I promised myself I wouldn't get too close to anyone again." He sighed, his fingers running through Rufus's fur. "But you've changed that." It was a revelation for Alden. Rufus was not just a dog, he was a mirror reflecting the pain Alden had tried to hide. With Rufus, he felt safe to explore those buried emotions. He began to understand that allowing love into his life didn't mean he would be hurt again. Days turned into weeks, and Alden found himself embracing the newfound joy that came with caring for Rufus. He took him on long walks in the park, where they would meet other dogs and their owners. Alden started to engage in conversations he had once avoided. "What breed is he?" a woman asked one day, smiling as Rufus sniffed around her dog. "He's a mix, I think," Alden replied, his chest swelling with pride. "I found him abandoned, but he's really become part of my life." "Lucky dog," she said, and Alden felt a warmth spread through him. It was a simple exchange, but it reminded him of how connection could flourish, even in small moments. As Alden cared for Rufus, he also found himself taking better care of himself. He cooked meals instead of ordering takeout, often sharing bits of food with Rufus. "You deserve a good meal too, buddy," he would say, laughing as Rufus eagerly gobbled up his share. But the more Alden cared for Rufus, the more memories surfaced. Each day brought him closer to understanding his own fears and the reasons behind the walls he had built. One afternoon, while grooming Rufus, he muttered, "You know, it's funny. I always thought I was fine alone. But now I see how lonely I was." Rufus nuzzled against him, offering comfort in his own way. Alden smiled, realizing how much he had grown to love this dog. Rufus was no longer just a stray he had saved. He had become a vital part of Alden's journey toward healing. In those quiet moments, Alden began to accept that it was okay to be vulnerable. With Rufus by his side, he took the first steps toward opening his heart again, ready to confront the past and embrace the future. Alden sat in the waiting room of the vet's office, nervously tapping his foot against the floor. Rufus lay at his feet, his tail thumping softly against the ground. Alden had grown accustomed to these visits, each one bringing him closer to the little dog who had changed his life. But today felt different. Today, he sensed that something significant was about to happen. The vet, a kind woman with gentle eyes, entered the room holding a small scanner. "Let's see if Rufus has a microchip," she said cheerfully. Alden nodded, trying to hide the flutter of anxiety in his chest. As the vet scanned Rufus, Alden felt a mix of hope and dread. He wanted Rufus to be his forever, yet he also feared what the scan might reveal. Within moments, the vet looked up, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Well, "It seems Rufus does have a microchip," she said. "He belongs to a family." Alden's heart sank. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The vet continued. "The chip contains the contact information of his owner. It looks like he was lost under tragic circumstances." Alden clenched his fists, contemplating the implications. Rufus had become his companion, his friend, and now he was just a lost dog again. A sense of betrayal washed over him. "Can I just keep him?" he blurted out, desperation creeping into his voice. The vet shook her head gently. "I understand how you feel, Alden, but Rufus has a family who loves him. They must be worried sick about him." Alden felt a whirlwind of emotions. He looked down at Rufus, who gazed back at him with trusting eyes. "But what about us?" he murmured. "What about the bond we've built?" "Love can be complicated," the vet replied softly. "Sometimes, it means letting go for the sake of someone else's happiness." Alden's thoughts raced as he wrestled with the idea. He remembered the moments he had spent with Rufus, the walks in the park, the quiet evenings on the couch, the way Rufus would nuzzle against him when he felt down. Alden realized that Rufus had brought light into his once lonely life, and now he was faced with the possibility of losing that light. "Who is the owner?" Alden asked, his voice trembling. The vet checked the information on her tablet. "Her name is Clara. I can give you her number if you'd like to reach out." Alden took a deep breath, his mind swirling with thoughts of what he should do. He felt a sense of obligation to Clara, but his heart ached at the thought of losing Rufus. "I need time to think," he said, his voice firm, yet filled with uncertainty. After leaving the vet's office, Alden walked slowly through the streets, Rufus trotting beside him. The connection they shared felt stronger than ever, yet a shadow loomed over them. "What am I going to do, buddy?" Alden asked, kneeling to look Rufus in the eyes. "Do I let you go back to your family? Or do I keep you here with me?" Rufus tilted his head, as if trying to understand the weight of Alden's words. Alden chuckled softly, brushing his hand through Rufus's fur. "You don't know, do you? You just want to be loved." As they continued their walk, Alden's thoughts drifted back to the concept of love. He thought about how he had built walls around his heart, avoiding connections to protect himself. Rufus had broken through those walls, but now he faced a choice that could change everything. Later that evening, Alden sat in his living room, Rufus curled up on the couch beside him. The flickering light from the lamp cast a warm glow over the room. Alden picked up his phone and stared at the number the vet had given him. He hesitated, heart racing as he contemplated calling Clara. "What do I say?" he wondered aloud. "Do I tell her how much I care for you?" Rufus lifted his head, looking at Alden with those soulful eyes. Alden felt his resolve strengthen. Perhaps this was not just about Rufus, it was about him too. It was about learning to confront his fears, to embrace the possibility of connection, no matter how painful it might be. With a deep breath, Alden decided to take the first step. He dialed Clara's number, ready to face whatever came next. As the phone rang, he felt the weight of his decision pinning him down, but he also felt a flicker of hope. Alden stood in front of the small, weathered house, his heart racing. The address he found was clear, but the weight of the moment was heavy. Rufus sat by his side, wagging his tail, unaware of the emotional storm brewing in Alden's chest. Today was the day he would meet Clara, Rufus's original owner. Taking a deep breath, Alden knocked on the door. He heard footsteps inside, and soon a woman opened it. Clara was in her early 30s, with tired eyes that spoke of loss. Her dark hair fell loosely around her shoulders, and a hint of sadness lingered in her smile. "Hi, can I help you?" Clara asked, her voice soft but cautious. Alden swallowed hard. "I'm Alden. I found Rufus. He has a microchip, and I traced it back to you." Clara's eyes widened, and her breath caught in her throat. "Rufus, you found him?" "Yes," Alden replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "He's safe now, but I thought you might want to see him." Clara stepped aside, and Alden walked inside, Rufus trotting happily behind him. The small living room was filled with photographs of a family, including a picture of Clara with a younger Rufus. It was clear that this dog was once a cherished part of her life. "Rufus!" Clara knelt down, and Rufus bounded over to her, his tail wagging furiously. She wrapped her arms around him, tears forming in her eyes. "Oh, I missed you so much." Alden watched the reunion, feeling a mix of happiness and sadness. Clara's grief was palpable. He wanted to comfort her, but felt unsure of how to bridge the gap between them. "I'm so sorry for your loss," Alden said gently, breaking the silence that hung in the air. "I heard about what happened." Clara looked up, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Thank you. It's been really hard. We lost him during a storm. I thought I would never see him again." Alden nodded, understanding the pain of losing a beloved pet. "I understand. Rufus, he's been a light in my life too. I never expected to find him, but he's changed so much for me." Clara wiped a tear from her cheek and smiled weakly. "I'm glad he found you. I just wish I could have kept him safe." The two shared a moment of silence, both lost in their thoughts. Alden couldn't help but feel that their stories were intertwined in some strange way. "You know," he said, trying to draw her out, "Rufus has this way of bringing people together. He taught me how to open my heart again." Clara looked at him, her expression shifting from sorrow to curiosity. "You've been through something too, haven't you?" Alden hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. "I've spent years focusing on my career, and I forgot how to feel. Finding Rufus helped me remember what really matters." Clara studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I think we both need to heal. Rufus may have led us to each other for a reason." Alden felt a warmth spread through him. "Maybe we can help each other. I want to make sure Rufus is happy, and if that means you need him in your life, I understand." Clara smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "Thank you, Alden. That means more than you know. I'm still figuring things out, but I can't imagine not having him in my life again." As they spoke, Rufus moved between them, nuzzling against their hands. The connection between the three of them felt strong, like a bond forged in shared pain and healing. Alden took a deep breath, feeling a sense of purpose. "How about we take Rufus for a walk? I'd like to hear more about your memories with him." Clara nodded, her eyes brightening at the suggestion. "I would love that." Together, they stepped outside, moving forward in their journey of healing, with Rufus leading the way. Alden realized that this encounter was not just about returning a dog, it was about finding closure for both of them and understanding that love can grow even in the face of loss. Alden Voss stood in his living room, Rufus curled up by his feet, the weight of the world resting heavily on his shoulders. The quiet hum of the city outside felt distant, as if time had paused just for him. He had spent days thinking about what he had learned from Clara and her heartbreaking story, the dog's original owner. Rufus was more than a dog now. He was a symbol of connection and vulnerability, a bond that Alden had never expected to form. As he looked down at Rufus, Alden felt a pang in his chest. The dog had brought joy and light into his lonely life, but now that joy came with a heavy price. "What am I going to do, boy?" he whispered, stroking Rufus's soft fur. The dog looked up at him with big, trusting eyes, as if sensing the turmoil in Alden's heart. The phone rang, breaking the silence. It was Clara. Alden hesitated before answering, his heart racing. "Hey, Clara," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Hi, Alden. I hope I'm not bothering you," Clara replied, her voice soft but tinged with sadness. "I just wanted to check in on Rufus." Alden swallowed hard. He's doing well. He's been really happy here." "That's good to hear," Clara said, a slight pause following her words. Alden could almost hear her thoughts racing. "I've been thinking about him a lot. I just miss him so much." Alden's heart ached. He could imagine Clara, alone in her home, longing for the warmth of her furry companion. "I know," he said slowly. "I've been thinking about you too." "What do you mean?" Clara asked, a hint of curiosity in her tone. "I mean, I've been thinking about what it means to let go," Alden said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Rufus has changed my life in ways I never thought possible, but I also know he belongs with you." Clara was silent for a moment, and Alden could feel the weight of her emotions. "I want him back, Alden, but I also see how happy you both are together. It's just so hard. I'm not sure I can keep him," Alden admitted, struggling to find the right words. "He's become my lifeline, but I know he needs you. You're his family." Maybe it's not just about ownership," Clara suggested, her voice trembling slightly. "Maybe it's about what's best for him." Alden closed his eyes, allowing her words to sink in. He had been so focused on his own feelings that he had lost sight of what truly mattered. "You're right," he finally said. "Rufus deserves to be with you, where he feels safe and loved." The conversation hung in the air, filled with unspoken emotions. Alden felt a mix of sadness and relief wash over him. "I'll bring him to you," he said, his voice firm yet gentle. "I want you both to have that chance." "Are you sure?" Clara asked, her voice a blend of hope and fear. "I don't want to take him away from you. I just want my boy back." "Rufus will always be a part of my life, Clara, but I know that love sometimes means letting go," Alden replied, feeling a sense of clarity. "I have to do this for him and for you." "Thank you, Alden. You're so kind," Clara said, her voice breaking slightly. "I don't know how to express how much this means to me." Alden took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision lift slightly. "It's what you deserve. I'll bring him to you tomorrow. Just tell me where to meet." "Thank you. Thank you so much," Clara said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I'll be waiting." After hanging up, Alden looked down at Rufus, who had shifted closer, as if sensing the change in the air. "Looks like we have a big day tomorrow, buddy," he murmured, scratching behind the dog's ears. Rufus wagged his tail, blissfully unaware of the emotional storm swirling around them. As dusk fell, Alden reflected on his decision. It was hard, but he felt a warmth growing in his chest. He knew he was doing the right thing, not just for Rufus, but for himself as well. This act of kindness was part of his healing journey, a step toward embracing the love he had long kept at bay. "Good night, Rufus," he said softly, feeling a profound connection to the dog who had unwittingly led him on this path of self-discovery. Tomorrow would be a new beginning for both of them. After Alden made the difficult decision to return Rufus to Clara, a new chapter began in his life. He felt a mix of sadness and hope. While he missed Rufus dearly, he knew this was not the end of their connection. Alden wanted to honor Rufus by doing something meaningful. One day, as they sat in a small cafe, Alden turned to Clara and said, "What if we start an animal shelter? There are so many abandoned pets that need help." Clara looked surprised but intrigued. "An animal shelter? That's a big idea, Alden, but I love it. We could really make a difference together." Her eyes sparkled with excitement. Alden saw the light in her face and felt a warmth grow in his heart. Over the next few weeks, they worked tirelessly to establish the shelter. They met with local officials, gathered donations, and found a suitable location. Alden used his skills as a tech CEO to create a website for the shelter, making it easier for people to adopt pets. Clara took charge of the day-to-day operations, pouring her heart into caring for the animals. One afternoon, while painting the walls of the shelter, Alden paused and said, "You know, when I first found Rufus, I never imagined I would be here, doing this." Clara looked up from her paintbrush and replied, "Sometimes, the best things come from unexpected places. Rufus brought us together, and now we can help so many more." As the shelter began to take shape, Alden noticed a change in himself. He was no longer the lonely man who walked through life with his head down. He laughed more, connected with people, and felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. One day, as they cared for a group of playful puppies, Alden turned to Clara and said, "I wish I could have seen this side of life sooner. It feels so good to help these animals." Clara smiled and replied, "It's never too late to change, Alden. You've opened your heart in ways you never thought possible." Alden felt a rush of gratitude. "Thank you for being part of this journey with me. I don't think I could have done it alone." Clara's expression softened, and she said, "We make a great team, and I'm glad you're in my life." As the weeks passed, the shelter became a sanctuary not just for the animals, but for Alden and Clara as well. They shared their stories, their fears, and their hopes. They laughed over coffee breaks and comforted each other during tough days. Each moment spent together deepened their bond. One rainy afternoon, while they were cleaning the shelter, Clara said, "You know, I've never felt this connected to anyone since I lost Rufus. You understand my pain?" Alden nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "I feel the same. You've helped me heal in ways I never expected." As they moved forward, Alden realized how far he had come. The shadows of his past no longer loomed over him. Instead, he embraced the joy and love that came from caring for the animals and supporting Clara. With every dog that found a new home, Alden felt a piece of his heart mend. One evening, as they closed the shelter for the day, Alden turned to Clara and said, "I think we're doing something truly special here. This place is going to change lives." Clara smiled brightly, a spark of hope in her eyes. "And it's all because of your decision to help. You took a chance, Alden, and look where it brought us." Alden stood there, looking around at the shelter filled with barking dogs and playful kittens. He felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. "I've learned that love can come from pain, and sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the brightest beginnings." With that, they locked the doors and stepped outside, the sun setting behind them. Alden felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose as he walked beside Clara, knowing that together they were building a brighter future for themselves and for all the animals that needed a second chance. Share this story if you believe that love can transform even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about how an unexpected encounter has changed your life, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales like this one.